Hi, this is Pam Worth with the Hello Health Podcast, and today I have Lesley, and she has the rule book to help moms of sons navigate the transition to being the mother-in-law. So, welcome, Lesley, for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Pam.
So, as a mother of two boys who will, I'm assuming, eventually become a mother-in-law. Hopefully, I'm not the monster mother-in-law.
You won't be if you read my book, I promise you.
So, please tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into doing what you're doing, things that are really resonating with people right now as you're going through this.
Okay, so people think people now think that I wrote this book because I do currently have two daughters-in-law, but I'm a therapist, so I want to just like for the record state this is not personal, although I do have to follow my own advice many of the time. So it started really in my private practice where I was seeing the moms come in or the mothers-in-law come in and complaining about their daughter-in-law and being upset that they're not as close to their son and what could they do, and then grandchildren come along and it's all the daughter-in-law's fault. And so I was seeing that side of it, and then I was also seeing the young women coming in and talking about their monster-in-laws and how they were making their lives so difficult and not respecting them. So that led me to co-hosting a seminar. So it was just kind of random. We had 25 women in the room and we gave a seminar on this topic. And it became very clear how much impact we were having with bringing up some of these themes and how it resonated so much for everyone. So I had a room full of these women. They were, there was a lot of tears and a lot of laughter. And after that seminar, I was approached by so many of them saying, "Can you please send me your notes or write a book?" And so in my spare time, and I say that laughingly because I work as a therapist pretty much full time, I put my syllabus together and created this wonderful book. So that's the background of it.
I think that's great. So, when you're doing this, do you try and bring both sides together? Do you work on one side versus the other side and then bring them together? What's kind of the strategy in terms of how to think about bringing those
So
two sides?
that's an interesting question. When I first, before I even created the seminar, I was wondering, do I talk to the young girls or am I doing a talk for the mother-in-law or am I going to do it for both?
Mhm.
And it became pretty clear a few things. One is the daughter-in-law was not interested in doing things any differently. Um, and that's not to slam her. It's we all were there, newly married or married and wanting to start out our own lives and thinking like this is the way it is and we're forming our family and she's got to figure it out. So I knew that that was going to be tough if I focused on them. And then I knew it would be really tough if I brought them into the room together. So I decided to focus on the mother-in-law, and that's why this book, and particularly the mother of a son, because that dynamic is different. Really, not to blame. This is not that the mother-in-law necessarily is to blame, although there are things we can all do better. Really, it's not a book of blame. It's about understanding the daughter-in-law so that you can be the best mother-in-law and not lose your son. So that's how it came about. And I also then, at the same time, I did a little questionnaire of the daughters-in-law, an anonymous private questionnaire about things that would remain private, but what they can't stand about their mother-in-law. And there were so many common themes that really helped me with the seminar and then creating the book.
So, what are some of the themes?
Well, like I said, a big one is I wish my mother-in-law would just realize that she was once a daughter-in-law and we love her, but we don't need her involvement all the time. Um, that she can stay part of our lives, but she has to respect that we have new traditions, different traditions, and really, a lot of it was respect,
Hmm.
respecting of a boundary, not just showing up uninvited, not inserting oneself, not giving advice when not asked,
Hmm.
that kind of thing. So that came up. And when I read their comments out loud, that's when we had a lot of tears because I said, they weren't specifically their daughters-in-law, but these are your daughters-in-law.
Hmm.
And they may love you, but this is what they think about you.
Hmm.
And we want to change that. And it can be changed.
So when you're first starting to get to know this new daughter-in-law, what are some of the things that you recommend in terms of bringing people together, and how to have maybe those difficult conversations earlier on when, they're still dating or engaged, so then it doesn't become something more serious or detrimental later?
Okay, so I'm going to back up just a little bit because I think one of the biggest themes that really took people by surprise, and I've gotten this feedback on the book, is that it has to start way before then, when your son may be dating, or even as they're growing up, Pam, with your two sons, like the hardest part of parenting is letting go. So letting your son go in different ways, little by little, until the big way of, okay, he's getting married and leaving our family and creating another. So the big theme with that, and people don't realize, is grief. Now, your son, thankfully, has not died, but he is leaving you. That is a loss. He's leaving you in the way that you always knew him. And your role is not the same as you always knew. And there's a lot of grief with that. So I find that if the mother in law does not, or the mom, does not realize that she's grieving, she's from the start going to be doing everything wrong because she's desperately going to cling to what she used to have with him. So the very first step is really mourning that relationship the way it was. And there is a better ending to it. It is not a death, it is a new relationship that will require a whole new set of rules. But before you get to that, you really need to get sad. It's sad. I've had two sons get married. It's wonderful. It's happy. It's a great occasion, and I love my daughters-in-law, but there is sadness. They're not our little boys anymore. They don't need us in that same way. So that's the very first step. Should I go back to your your question about what
Yeah,
should you
yeah,
do with your,
yeah,
or
for
did you
sure.
want to follow up with
No,
that?
and I think that's a really good point. Is I mean, I've grieved when they left for college. I've grieved when I found out they started dating. Like, and so that is a very healthy thing to be aware of. So thank you for that.
You're welcome, but you're in this profession, so you know that it's grief. I can't begin to tell you how many people don't understand that they're grieving. So they get angry, they get controlling, they do all these things, and it's just a cover for, I'm really sad. He's not my little boy anymore.
Now, you'll find this funny. So my son has recently gotten serious with a girl in just a dating, and I said, this is like the first week of February, and I said, uh, Valentine's Day is coming up. And he's like, oh, yeah, yeah. And I said, restaurants will fill up and, flowers are hard to come by. Do you want some help? And he's like, no, I got this.
That is so funny. You didn't want him to blow it, right? He
Yeah,
has a girlfriend, he cares about her, and you wanted him to do the right thing. But I love what he said, that he's got this.
yeah, yeah.
That's amazing. And I'm sure he does. It may not be the restaurant. He may have a different idea, but that's okay too, right?
So when you're at what point do you find that, I don't know, it's so interesting. Like I've got three brothers and we've had success stories and horror stories. And at what point do you kind of feel like this coming together is, it's really touchy? I mean, any suggestions you have for people?
When you say coming together, what do you mean? Like the
So,
family coming together or what?
well, the mother, like, either giving too much in the relationship too early or not giving enough or potentially coming off as disrespectful when it's not meant to be. Like, how do you
So,
kind
like in the early dating stages, how to handle that?
of, yeah, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's really hard. I know people, and I've worked with women who immediately are so excited about their son's choice in a girlfriend, and or even like my son has a girlfriend. Can't believe anyone would love the kid that, did X, Y, and Z, ate with his hands and whatever, but there is someone out there for them. And so sometimes the mom can get overzealous and overexcited. And then we see that if that relationship doesn't work out, the mom is really devastated. So maybe she'll swing the next time with the next girlfriend and completely take herself out. And I would say neither extreme is the right thing. And I am all about communication, and I think you are too. So at that point, I think it's worth communicating with your son, saying, I don't want to be that annoying mom who's like, so what are we doing tonight? Or is your girlfriend coming over for movie night? I don't want to be that mom. And I don't want to be the mom that looks disinterested by like letting you grow up and do this on your own. So what do you think is the right balance, son? Like, how much do you want me involved? Or when do you want me to meet her? And people usually ask that question about when do I get to meet her? And you get to meet her when he's ready for you to meet her. Don't ever push that. So it's a communication thing. Ask your son
Yeah,
and a little bit of your gut. Don't go one extreme or the other.
yeah, no, that's true. What other suggestions do you have for people that are navigating this and at different stages of the relationship? I mean, I think another big one is right after marriage and then when they have kids, right?
Yes, well, you just made a huge leap. So I would say, can we break that down a little bit? First, there's marriage, and we know kids come later, but let's talk about marriage or even dating. Let me go back to dating. So we started with that. And people always ask, what do you do as a mom if you don't like your son's choice? So we're talking about their dating or even they're getting engaged. And again, that's one of those really tough areas. You have to really look within and say, like, what's this about for me? Am I really concerned about something? Or am I upset that he might be leaving me? So you really have to observe that. If there's something really, really, really wrong with her, and for some reason he hasn't seen it, I still err on the side of not saying anything. And if you have to say something, it's not as like you need to break up with her or you should rethink this engagement, but more like I've noticed a few things and I would just be remiss if I didn't point them out to you, but not to get you to change your plan or anything. Just want to make sure that your eyes are wide open, that you've seen some of these things, and hey, maybe you can deal with them, and that's great. But that's really like a landmine there. So I would say, as much as you can, stay out of that. Then they get married. And so that's a big one. That is a huge transition where your son leaves your family. And this is hard for, I get so much hate mail over this one, but he's not in your family anymore. You now become his extended family. And that's hard. Again, we mourn it, but we also have to understand the boundaries of it. So he has a new primary family, even without kids. He and his wife are forming a family. So the respect has to start there. They're not your little kids. You don't need to expect them to be at every holiday. She's got her family too. So it's really a matter of respect at that point. And throughout the early stages of marriage, as you asked, like maybe a few questions ago, like what can you do to set it up? That's one of the best things you can do is really respect their privacy and again, communicate. You can say to your daughter-in-law, I don't want you to think I'm not interested. I am so interested in the two of you and would love to be with you a lot. But I say that not to guilt you into seeing me, but to say, I'm not going to be the one who's going to insert myself. I won't stand on ceremony either, but I want to respect your privacy. So I'm here if and when you need me, and I'm not if you don't. So that's the first part. Do you want me to get to the kids, or do you have any follow up on that?
What if you really want to get to know them, but they're also kind of shy and they don't necessarily know how to have a relationship with you? I mean, are there things that you can do to kind of facilitate these things or um, to
Absolutely.
the communication, activities, connection?
Yeah. So, one thing that I always advise mothers-in-law to think about is what they want. You have some mothers-in-law that want to be super close to their daughter-in-law because they're smart. They love her, they love their son, and they know that that's the key. There are others that don't want that for whatever reason, and I'm not going to judge. We're not going to judge that at all. So first know what you might want out of the relationship, and it's important. The next step with that is to communicate with your daughter-in-law. Your daughter-in-law may have her own mom. Chances are she does. And she may be super close to her mom, and maybe she doesn't want another mom or another mom type figure. And maybe she wants to be more of a pal. Maybe she doesn't want any of that, which is painful. And I'm not talking about an estrangement or a cutting off, but she may want more separation and more space. Um, Maybe she has a mom that she's not close to, and she looks to you to fill that role. So again, communication. You want to ask her after you understand what your own needs are, ask her. I don't want to make any assumptions, daughter-in-law, about what you might want. And you may not even know what you want, and what you want today may change for what you want tomorrow. But I would love to be close to you in whatever way that works for you. I don't want to overstep. I know you're close with your mom or you're not close with your mom, whatever it is. I don't want to overstep. I want to do this the way you want to do it. That's key. And then you're asking, like, what are some ideas? Like, of course, you want to get to know her better. You want to get to know her hobbies and the things that she's passionate about, what's important to her in life, and whether it's a walk, a spa day, if she's into that, a coffee, a girls' night out, or getting together with a group of your girlfriends and asking her, I don't know if this is too weird for you, but we'd all love to get to know you better. Are you comfortable coming with us? My daughters-in-law love those nights, by the way. They come out with my girlfriends and me, like they love it. They love it. And they say like goals with a Z at the end, goals that like they want to be like us. So that works really nicely. But I included them and I always do. Like if you want to come. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So communication, it's the key to everything, whether we're talking about this issue or another one. Just communicate. Communicate your needs and ask what theirs are. And you want to respect them.
The key here is communication, asking questions.
Absolutely. And not making assumptions and not having expectations.
Yeah, the expectations part's hard.
Right. So this is in my book. So am I allowed to share this and give a little bit away?
Yes.
Um, my mother-in-law has passed away. So, and even if she was alive, she does now know this story that she was a part of. Um, and it's in the book, and people just burst out laughing. I actually burst out crying at the time, but I can laugh now. So, my whole life, I could not wait to have a mother-in-law. And for my own personal reasons, that was really important to me. I couldn't wait to go shopping with her, to go have tea with her, to go out with her girlfriends, to tell her all my woes and everything. I just could not wait for that moment. So we got married and we had, I don't think anyone does this anymore, but we had a receiving line. Does anyone do that anymore?
Oh,
Like after the ceremony where the family lines up
oh
and
yeah.
every guest
Yeah, no, we had
shakes
that
the
too.
hand
That was a long time ago.
a long time ago. So we had a receiving line and I'm greeting all the guests and my cheeks hurt. I'm smiling so much and I was so happy. And every guest is now gone and what remains is just us and the families. And I looked at my mother-in-law and I was so excited. And I said, "So what do I call you now?" And in one word, she decimated me and all of my hopes and dreams. She said, "Ruth." And now I can't make that bark happen in a book, but that I'm not kidding. That's how she spoke. And she barked it at me, "Ruth." And I lost it. And I ran to the bathroom, my sister carrying my train, tears streaming down my face because I had an expectation that I was going to have this warm, loving mother-in-law, and that's not what I got. So there is a happier ending to this story that through the years, I learned to respect that she was not the mother-in-law that I may have dreamt about or dreamed about, but she cared. She was generous. She was loyal. She was fun. She just was not warm. And she did not have any interest in being my mommy. And I had to deal with that. I had to grieve that on my own. And so a few years before she died, I told her or reminded her of that story, which meant nothing to her. She probably didn't even notice that I was crying. And I said, I just, I sort of want to come clean with this situation that happened so many years ago at my wedding. And she didn't miss a beat. And she said to me, "At least I didn't say Mrs. Copel." And I said, "Touche. Okay, at least I got Ruth. I didn't have to call her Mrs. anybody." But that was my sadness and my disappointment over that.
Hilarious. I can just picture it. Meanwhile, I'm sure she's going through her own emotional thing. It doesn't feel like making a scene. And
Exactly. Exactly. Or she didn't think twice about it. She, at that point, already had a daughter-in-law and already had a son-in-law. So this was her third, and she was kind of done with it. And okay, there's another one. That's kind of how she handled things in life. But that was for me to work out, and we worked it out just fine. And I guided her through being a good mother-in-law after all.
right. So then the last part is when they have kids and you become the grandma. Oh,
Okay, so that is a whole other can of worms. And this is where I get a lot of hate mail. I mean, this makes grandmothers insane because they believe it's their right to, and they would not say it this way, but to own those grandchildren. Those grandchildren are theirs, and they can do whatever they want to do because it's their grandchild. But the key to that, to having a good relationship with your grandchild, is to not go around the parents, but go through the parents and respect what the parents want and their boundaries, and not just make those assumptions and not just think it's your right that because you became a grandmother that you have the right to just sort of own these kids and show them off or drag them around or not keep to the parents' schedule. So it's really challenging. And in fact, I did not cover this on purpose in my book because if ever there's a book two, it's about that issue. And I believe you can't get to being a good grandparent unless you first become a good mother-in-law. And you really have to lock that relationship in really solidly before they have kids because it gets really rough afterwards.
Yeah, I've heard so many stories. Like a friend of mine, um, her brother's wife wouldn't let her or their mom drive the kids. She would rather the kids take an Uber. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm safer than an Uber. Like,
Wow.
oh,
That's really rough.
yeah,
That's really rough. And what's really hard is that if you don't respect that wish, that's where there's a real problem. And it's not easy to respect that wish. That sounds insane.
I know.
That mom is probably a better driver
Yeah,
than the Uber driver.
yeah. I don't know. It's yeah, respecting the crazy.
Respect the crazy, and hopefully by respecting it, you do earn more trust,
Yeah.
and trust is earned.
Mhm.
And then so is that relationship. So maybe the more that mother shows that she's respecting that boundary and other boundaries that the new mom, her daughter-in-law, has set, maybe that daughter-in-law can open up to the idea of different ways that she could be involved, including driving her kids.
So funny. Any last parting thoughts for people as they're listening? They want to learn more and read your book.
Yes, well, I hope they buy the book. My biggest challenge, and so maybe I pose this to you and your audience, is that people that read my book are really motivated, and you in your podcast, you're all about that. Like we have the power. Like dig in, do what you need to do, figure it out, get educated, and then do it right. So those are the people that are buying my book. And for the most part, they don't even need it. Like some of the stuff is common sense. I mean, I lay it all that out, and I do so in a fun and humorous, lighthearted way. So it's a fun read. But those are the moms or mothers-in-law that don't really need the book. And the ones that need the book won't buy the book. That's not for, she's got to change. My daughter-in-law needs to be different. So that's been my biggest issue with getting the hate mail and getting the book into the right hands. But the parting wisdom is be open-minded to looking within. I am not blaming you as a mother-in-law. This is not about blame. I'm also not saying that it all lies with you. There are things that daughter-in-law can do better. We know that. But without getting to them, which if I can't do it, I don't know, you as a mother-in-law, emotionally charged, you're not going to get there. So you have to accept it for what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Leslie. We really appreciate having you on today.
It was a treat. It was nice talking to you.
You too.